I heard a lecture by a guy last week, and he mentioned that we are already in the post-apocalyptic times, and I think that generally people believe that that's what will happen after the big war between good and evil, which is called Armageddon, which is supposed to happen in northern Palestine, Israel, according to the Bible. And I got to thinking that he's actually right, because the apocalypse is a revelation of hidden knowledge. And these days on the internet, all of the secret mystery school teachings and hidden science is on the internet. And you can just dial it up. This hasn't happened for, I would say, many thousands of years, maybe over 20,000 years. It looks like in the past, mankind got to the place where he knew we were in a galaxy, and that the turning of the galaxy and stars had an effect on affairs on the planet Earth. And well, that was expunged maybe 20,000 years ago. From the information I have, that planet changed hands at that time, and it's been less fun here since then. That would be what was in Egypt. And most of what we have now, where science and math and philosophy came out of Egypt and was scattered around the Mediterranean after the disaster. Egypt was called Chem, K-E-M, once, for example, chemistry comes from Egypt. So I've just recently done the reading of a story by Peter Ouspensky. Peter Ouspensky was a conscious being and fourth way teacher, and how the succession of school knowledge usually works in these times is there will be an actual great teacher. In this case was GURDJIEFF, and someone with some ability to write is recruited by the teacher to put his materials into book form. And in this case it was Peter Ouspensky. And then Peter Ouspensky had a student called RODNEY, who wrote a tremendous book called The Theory of Celestial Influence. And the very fact that this book was published, for example, Celestial Influence is what I'm talking about. Information is available. The book's out of print now because they are constantly trying to prevent the slaves from waking up. And that's approximately what happened with the takeover of the planet. This is now a slave planet, which is why things are not going well. And it's very obvious to me there's a war on consciousness which has been going on for a long time. Anybody who speaks about it, writes about it, or promotes real religion or psychic experiences gets attacked. In Peter Uspensky's book, called In Search of the Miraculous, there's a few chapters dedicated to how fractals work. The world now has fractal math and has noticed that that's the way the natural universe works, on fractal principles. Uspensky, being a conscious being, has taken it to the next level and explained why they work like that. And they're based on something he calls the law of octaves, because people are familiar with the musical octave, and it's one of the most obvious places where this thing shows up. It's consists of 8 steps and 2 empty spaces. And the empty spaces require an additional energy to complete a change, and generally at the first interval is where fractals enter and things just randomly go up on their own. And very near the end there's a small space which would have to be filled with conscious intention to get something to go right. And how this applies to now is civilizations have octaves, and they last about 800 years, and halfway through, at the 400-year mark, the civilization begins to decline, and the forces of the next civilization begin to ascend. And after about 800 years, the old civilization is destroyed by the new one. And the civilizations ongoing also have an octave which lasts about 6,400 years. Will you still love me when I'm 64? And we're coming to the end of that in 2035. That's when the last interval comes up for this 6,400 year long cycle of civilizations. And that's the time when conscious effort needs to be put out. This is the point of the battle between good and evil, because most people want the world to go in a better direction, in quotation marks, and the slave masters want it to go in a negative direction. And they know that because they have the esoteric knowledge, and have been using it against us for a few thousand years, and now we have it available on the internet, and the question is, who's going to take advantage of this knowledge and use it to turn things in a better direction? And also is bad grammar, sorry. Also, this 6,400 years is half of 12,800, which is half of the time it takes the Earth to circle around the cycle of the equinoxes. And that circling of the equinoxes is one day in the life of the Earth as a living being. So we have 12,800 years of what would be day light, and 12,800 years of what would be night. And during the daylight period, things are better on the planet. So from this point on, this is the age of Aquarius, we would have 6,400 years of ascending culture, and then slowly starting to decline for the next 6,400 years. And then a reversal of that trend into the nighttime of the Earth, where things will be getting darker and darker for 6,400 years, and then beginning to come towards the light again. which is where we've been for the last 6,400 years. The declining of the dark masculine energy and the ascension of the light feminine energy. The turning of the solar system around revolution around the rim of the galaxy is one day, 1 year in the life of the Earth as a living being, as a six-dimensional being. The Mayans knew this. This is what was on the Mayan calendar, and every hour of every day of every year of every millennia has a flavor to it, caused by the mixture of celestial influences from the sun, planets, the galaxy, and the universe. And they use that to live in harmony with those cosmic forces, and life was better. And somebody has just decoded the Great Pyramid and found out it's a generator of microwave energy. And it's located at the center of all land masses on the Earth, so they're probably broadcasting that as power worldwide. Which is how the great feats of engineering were done, with something using broadcast microwave as a power source. So if they were broadcasting microwaves, they're probably capable of cutting a stone accurately. And the reason the original Mayan works were destroyed by the Spanish and 1 or 2 copies taken to Rome is the suppression of our true nature and place in the universe. I call this the war on consciousness. Anything even having the slightest aroma of esotericism or freedom is immediately stopped. I'm going to reiterate what I've said earlier, is that what we call the universe is a game that was concocted by immortal beings of infinite power. And it's one of many such games. And these games have been going on for 105 to the 330th power in years. And this is another hidden meaning of the 33 figure that the Masons have. And this game is infinite in size and eternal in length. And eternity is infinity squared. So this is something that would be a challenge to the mortal being of infinite power. But in this particular corner of this galaxy, things are less fun than they could be. Not all planets are like this. And this one's slated for cleanup. But we have to do it. And the knowledge is now free to use. And the main enemy is, even if there are demons, devils, archons, aliens, what's in our face is human beings. Karen Hudes, whistleblower from the World Bank, says there are 7 major banks and 41,000 companies that comprise the business arm of the New World Order. And that's not a number, an unconfrontable number of banks not to do business with and businesses not to do business with. I have an acquaintance who used to be very high up in the World Bank, and he said when money for corruption is offered, he said people don't walk in that direction, they run. The power structure on Earth is the old Roman Empire has become the city-state, and only since 1945, so it can be undone. Mussolini declared it a city-state, and then Mussolini was convicted of, I say treason to make it simple. He got Italy into a lot of trouble. And anyone who works under a convicted criminal, their activities are also criminal. And his statement that the Vatican was a separate city-state could be undone. According also to Ouspensky's treatise on fractals, if you leave a fractal process alone, it always turns into its own opposite. It's circular. That's why people, when they get lost, wind up back where they came from. They're behaving in a fractal manner. It's not something built into the human genome so you can get home when you're lost. So Rome, at some point, realizing it would be less expensive to control people with religion than armies, morphed itself over a few centuries into the Holy Roman Catholic Church. Based on fractals, it became the opposite of what it started out as. Started as an empire to rule the world, and turned around and became a religious organization based on the new idea that conscious being Jesus brought to the world about what about peace and brotherhood and fairness and honesty and brotherly love instead of barbarism. However, that again changed into conquering Europe through the divine right of kings, which is a lie. Jesus did not have any children. So there are no descendants of Yeshua of Nazareth. Mary, his common law wife, had 2 children from a previous marriage. So the divine right of kings is not true. But it was used to create a class of rulers, slave masters. The Vatican has worked through the kings of Britain and the British Empire to go out and conquer a lot of the world, which is using superior technology of sailing ships and guns on the people of the third world. They took that over, took all the gold, jewels, drugs, and enslaved them. Which is something in the world we're going to have. Those people should go back there and make up for doing that. Egypt has asked for its antiquities back. We have the Dutch in South Africa. When they took the gold and the diamonds, enslaved the local population. Now they're complaining there's too many blacks. Well, it's their country. Ouspensky was also the first person I know to say that it was possible for a country to be a criminal. We don't like to look at that. Because a country is a two-dimensional animal that consists of people. The width and breadth of the country, about 4 to 6 feet off the ground. That operates on the basis of the impasse of opposite solutions. So we have the second city-state, the square mile financial district, the City of London, the banking district. And they control the third city, which is the District of Columbia. If you look up, what does Columbia really mean? It's an incorporated British company that runs the slave population of the United States. And I do remember seeing George Bush Sr. on television declaring a new world order. And he lives in that world and was laughing at us when he said that. The world was taken over during his time as president, which is why I'm saying we're living in post-apocalyptic times. He's a member of the Carlyle Group, and Carlyle Group keeps popping up. They own HARP, for example. They bought it from the Navy. And in ownership of countries that are involved in eugenics and germ warfare, all kinds of nasty stuff. However, this is it's not impossible for this to be undone. The reason these people stay hidden is they know what they're doing is wrong, in the opinion of the mass of people. They are the 1%. And Thomas Sheridan of Ireland is the spokesperson for the fact that these people are psychopaths. And because they don't fit in, they are highly intelligent and motivated. They work their way up to the top in businesses, religions, governments, schools. And they have no empathy or philosophy, so they're suppressing the rest of us as sheep. And this is part of the revelation. It's part of the knowledge that this is what's going on. That's why things aren't working on this planet. We have psychopaths in charge. And psychopaths believe they are superior to other people and deserve to have the best of everything. And they'll never be caught for doing the things they're doing. So we have people like the rulers of North Korea and Vladimir Putin, assorted dictators and ne'er-do-wells around the world. I seem to be coming late to this revelation. For me, it's that the world is run by Satanists, and they let us run around in our Christian fantasy. And the last thing they want is for us to wake up and take a look at them. The reason for ISIS and Ebola now is the Catholic Church lost its class action lawsuit from the American parents of the molested children in the Catholic Church. The Vatican Bank was also busted for laundering drug money. The Queen of England, Elizabeth Windsor, has been convicted of child trafficking at the in Brussels at the International Court of Crimes of Church and State, and there's an arrest warrant out for her. So to cover this up, in case this ever comes out, we have suddenly World War III on the horizon and a pandemic. If this was known by everyone, I think things would change quite quickly. But the psychopaths have bought up all the media companies because they're motivated and they have money, so that you'll never hear about it. And the alternative news is found on YouTube. The major stumbling block seems to be the sleeping people, the mass of people who don't want to hear about this. They're being irresponsible. The reason they're like that is this is a prison planet, and everyone who's here has been grabbed at some point and tortured in spirit form, sometimes for years or centuries, for fighting back against suppression. So they know what happens when you fight back. So they don't want to know. Here's a quote by Samuel Adams. The liberties of our country, the freedoms of our civil constitution are worth defending at all hazard. It is our duty to defend them against all attacks. We have received them as a fair inheritance from our worthy ancestors. They purchased them for us with toil and danger and expense of treasure and blood. It will bring a mark of everlasting infamy on the present generation, enlightened as it is, if we should suffer them to be wrested from us by violence without a struggle, or be cheated out of them by the artifices of designing men. All men might be free if they valued freedom and defended it as they should. If you love wealth greater than liberty, the tranquility of servitude greater than the animating contest for freedom, go home from us in peace. We seek not your counsel, nor your arms. Crouch down and lick the hand that feeds you. May your chains set lightly upon you, and may posterity forget that you were our countrymen. Samuel Adams. If you're watching this video, that refers to you. If you're awake enough to be here, it refers to you. There's a saying that some people make things happen, others watch what happened, and still others wonder what happened. So I'm asking you to move from group 2, watching what happens, to group 1, which is making something happen. As far as help from on high coming to save the day, that both is not going to happen, and yet it is happening. I have a playlist on my site on YouTube called I think 10,000 cloned avatars speak. And what's there is videos by people in the esoteric movement, and I'm one of them. We were all born at the same time. We all look the same. We're all doing the same thing. And we all came here to do this. And this single being approach, like the Buddha or Jesus, has morphed into, well, they got our guy, so let's send 10,000 guys and see what happens. So, go take a look at that. Look at the faces. And wonder if that could be true. Are there many main figures in this business? Carrie Cassidy, Project Camelot, David Icke, Jim Mars, Ram Dass, my personal favorite. He brought Indian esotericism to the West, and if you're a fourth way person, if you look at Ram Dass, he will tell you how to do self-remembering. In a fourth way school, they tell you to do that, but they don't tell you how to do it. And remembering a fourth way school is the best of the other three ways, and one of them is the way of the yogi. That's where self-remembering came from. And the list is figuratively endless. YouTube is exploding with teachers. And the news is designed to keep everyone's attention off of the why. And the why is psychopaths. And at this time it's not necessary to know whether this is nature or nurture or beingness. The point is to make it public knowledge that they exist, and to wrest power from their hands and put it back in the hands of decent people, which is the 99%. Another thing, this statement by Samuel Adams, to be that kind of person, you have to be honest and upstanding. One of the main methods to prevent this kind of beingness is to degrade people. And people get degraded by being forced to commit dishonesty. And if you look around, we live in a slipshod, dishonest, sleazy culture, because our havingness has been taken away from us. Our money's been taken away. Our properties have been taken away. You don't actually own your house. You don't actually own your car. And there is no money. There's something called public policy, which you could look up. Shortly after the American Revolution, America went broke, and they had to go back to the same people in Europe and beg for money. And they got the money, but they were given a really bad deal. Then in 1933, the company went bust again. They went back to England and Europe for more money, and that's Roosevelt's it was a New Deal. And at that point, all of the land, all of the money, all of the gold, and all of the work of the slave population was given up to get the loan. And from that point on, everyone's been tax slaves. And owns nothing. There are people who specialize in this. And I have a playlist on my channel called Law. There's another one called Obvious Corruption. There are many people doing fantastic work and all the specialists in all these areas. And as I'm saying, all this knowledge is out there. You just have to dial in, go to YouTube or Google and type in whatever you're interested in, and you'll get it. One of the easiest ways to see that the New World Order is already here is you can't go anywhere without a passport. You can't go into another country. You can't just decide, I think I'll go to France, or I think I'll go on a walking tour of the Alps. You can't do that. You need permission. You're a single unit, tax slave, and you have to be accounted for, and it's very dangerous that you're active enough that you actually want to move around the planet. No passport, no go. I'm in North America, and the natives here can just walk across the border because, as the Canadian national anthem says, "O Canada, our home and native land." Anywhere else, you need a passport. We are not free. We could be free. Scarcity is artificial. Scarcity is a way to degrade people and pump up prices. My channel is called Newtopia, NSG, which stands for the New Civilization Game. Newtopia is John Lennon's idea of a country with no land, only people. And I couldn't use a C for civilization because there's a video game called that, which is put there to shunt young people away who might hear about this idea of a new civilization. You might say this is naive content, but the only reason a decent world wouldn't work is because of the presence of psychopaths and degraded beings. Hidden knowledge and false data have led us, or we have been led to where we are, which is a planet in chains. The only countries that have private banks are Northern Korea, Iran, the two big bad boys, and Canada, which was recently false flagged. This incident at the Parliament building is one of these MJ-12 people, the lone gunmen again. The lone gunmen always have a handler. They missed finding the handler. And because of the actions of one person, we're dragged closer to the worldwide police state model. This is part of the degradation of Canada. We used to send peacekeepers when I was young. I was very proud of that. I was naive. I didn't know what was going on, but Canada was the country that would send its forces dressed as blue-helmeted UN soldiers and get between the combatants in third world countries. And I thought, what a great idea, what a country. But we never went to participate in the American imperialistic wars. We went to World War I and II. But now we have sent 6 measly out-of-date jets and 300 support staff to get involved in the CIA-backed ISIS problem in the Middle East. And that's just not enough, so we have a false flag crazy person sent into Parliament to do whatever. People will go react. This is problem, reaction, solution. We have to do something about the terrorists. So more will be sent, more blood will be on Canadian hands, and the country will be further degraded. Among the citizenry, and perhaps international as well, Canada has a pretty good reputation. ISIS is not a country. It's not a government. It's philosophy. It's an idea. And history has shown that it's not possible to defeat an idea. Logically, since they're not a country and didn't come from anywhere in particular, they're wild and crazy men with guns, taking over territory and committing psychotic atrocities. This hasn't happened for a few hundred years. Had the Nazis in World War II doing that. And this is a standard operating procedure where you conquer some territory, capture the men, tell them if they don't join your army, they'll kill the women and children. So they capture territory. They get more fighters. They try to change them into their philosophy. They expand. This is a standard operating procedure for conquerors. The Nazis did that. They enslaved the countries. They took over, made the people work for them, took all the resources, paid for more guns and bombs. So doesn't it not seem logical that this very odd event, that the, quote, United Nations should take note of this? A huge coalition should be put together and stomp it out. But nothing's being done on any large scale. I made a joke on one of my other videos. I said we should take the chemtrail planes and spray them with Ebola, and they'll be dead in 3 weeks. This is what David Icke has been telling us for a long time. Problem, reaction, solution. The problem is going to get huger, and people will ask their governments, you better do something about this, and the governments will say, okay, you gave us your mandate, we're going to act. taking the blame off them. And behind this is the plan of the United States as a military arm of Great Britain under the direction of the Vatican through the Jesuits. Remember the Inquisition? That was nice. Conspiracy theorists en masse have been talking about leaked information that the United States secret government said we want to take down 5 Middle Eastern countries. And the timeline is approximately now. So they've taken out Libya, which was another country that had a privately owned bank. And the oil money was given to the citizens. Trouble in Egypt, Iraq, next, this looks like Syria, and then Iran. Iran has a very stringent anti-drug policy, and they're making it extremely difficult to get the opium by land out of Asia to Europe and beyond. I think that's why they're in trouble. I have a friend from my high school works for the combination of the United States Department of Justice and the U.S. military, and what he's been doing for the last few years is building military and police infrastructures in Africa, like police training facilities and military bases. And he was a year and a half ago moved to Jordan, where he would be building police training facilities and military infrastructure, and Jordan is right next to Syria. So I think this is part of the plan. This has been planned. And ISIS is the excuse. And what we'll see after this is perhaps a huge protectorate of the Middle East by the West to keep them from imploding with radical Islam. Meaning they wouldn't sell their oil to the West, and that would crash the Western economies, and people who make money from that oil would crash their economies. So that's being stopped. And as usual, the sleeping people's sons will be spilling blood on the sand to make this happen, at the behest of billionaire psychopaths. And that is what is going on. This is not a natural occurrence. This is an orchestrated money grab from the West. And the reason Russia is saber rattling is Russia wants to get in on the grab. Oil has been discovered offshore, off Palestine, and in Israel. And Lord Rothschild, Dick Cheney, and George Bush Sr. are investing in oil companies over there in preparation for the world after whatever is about to happen in the Middle East. I'm going to close this with a piece of music that I played I'm an organist, and I would rather be doing that than making all these videos and worrying about all of you. But it's my task this lifetime, and the task of many others who are risking different amounts of value to educate you